You're watching The New Stack Makers, a podcast for people who develop, deploy, and manage at-scale software. For more information and articles about at-scale technologies, please visit thenewstack.io. Now enjoy the show.
Since its inception, Amazon Web Services, AWS, has been the best place for customers to build and run open source software in the cloud. AWS is proud to support open source projects, foundations, and partners. Hello, and welcome to another On the Road episode of The New Stack Makers. I'm your host, Heather Joslin, Editor-in-Chief of The New Stack, and today we're coming to you from All Things Open in beautiful Raleigh, North Carolina. And we're going to talk today about OpenSearch, the OpenSearch analytics engine that AWS recently transferred to the Linux Foundation. We're here to talk about that decision and more with Anandi Bumstead, Director of Software Engineering at Amazon Web Services. Welcome, Anandi.
Thank you, Heather. I've been with Amazon for about 2 years, and I've been with the open source OpenSearch for all that time, so I'm really excited to be here with you.
Excellent. Well, we're excited to have you here. Can you tell me a little bit about your involvement with OpenSearch?
Yeah, sure. So from OpenSearch perspective, I actually joined, like I said, 2 years ago, and a lot of my involvement was around open source and how we innovate in open source. So I can give you a little bit of a backstory of what OpenSearch is.
Yes, please.
OpenSearch originated from Elastic. This was Elasticsearch about early 2021. And the decision to fork from Elasticsearch was done because of a relicensing change from Elastic. It was changed to a more restrictive source available license. And one of the things OpenSearch did was, and I was not part of that journey, but when the decision was made, it was really made from the customers and the community. And we listened to them, and we also wanted to really focus on bringing in an alternative open source version of OpenSearch under the Apache 2.0 license. And so here we are, and I joined when we were sort of in the mode of innovating in open source, and so here I am.
And you mentioned that Elasticsearch went behind a more restrictive licensing.
Yes.
A lot of that going around these days.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. Can you give us sort of a sense of what went into the decision to donate OpenSearch to the Linux Foundation?
Yeah. So, when I joined, a little bit of what I'll say, we really were doing a lot of things in the open, being transparent and open. But where we really looked at a neutral foundation is for neutral governance and also to bring in a broader community. And if you look at foundations, like most foundations, they really facilitate neutral governance and also enabling companies to collaborate in open source. And Linux Foundation has been very successful. I mean, tons of open source projects Linux Foundation has been governing. So we really wanted to lean into that. Another aspect of Linux Foundation, I just want to say, is they're really, really good about facilitating things like eventing and like marketing, training and certification. And I do think OpenSearch is in a journey where we do need to increase its brand awareness. We do need to bring in more training and documentation so people can use OpenSearch more. So I think it was like the best match. And we announced the transfer in September of 2024, just recently.
Right.
Yeah.
For people that are not as familiar with OpenSearch, I know that when I was doing research for this, I came across a quote from Carl Meadows, director of the product for OpenSearch, for the director of product for the OpenSearch project, and he called it a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on what might be meant by that? Like what are some of the use cases that you're seeing? I mean, we know it's an analytics engine, but
Great question. So OpenSearch is, a flexible data ingestion system. It builds on, like you said, the core search engine analytics, and also it has a visualization out of the box. And some of the use cases for OpenSearch, and that sort of leads to the analogy of, OpenSearch being a Swiss Army knife, is people widely use it for observability, log analytics. They use it for security analytics, for alert detection, and they're heavily used, especially with the Gen AI momentum, as a vector database. And so OpenSearch is also used for a lot of search scenarios. We have what is called semantic search, and we have this thing called hybrid search, where you can do a keyword search and you can do a semantic search. And all of these capabilities make OpenSearch widely used across a variety of these analytics scenarios.
So vector, that's obviously an area that's growing rapidly because of Gen AI.
Yes.
OpenSearch is sometimes criticized for being slower than Elasticsearch in terms of indexing speed and handling complex queries. Are those criticisms valid? And if so, is there anything on the roadmap to close that gap?
I mean, some of the criticisms are valid earlier on. Earlier on, like I said earlier, like we were focused on stabilizing and bringing the community on board, and that, we were focused on that. But soon after, we spent, our primary focus continues to be performance, and we spend a lot of time tuning performance. One of the things, I'm just going to talk about a few things we're doing in performance, just to reiterate this. So one of the things we did last year was we released this thing called OpenSearch benchmarks, which is a way for transparently in open source, you can measure the performance of OpenSearch, and you can bring in various workloads into that tool. So you can look at the query, how the query is doing, how is indexing doing, and all of the measurement. We can do it in open. And so if you look, now fast forward now, we just did an OpenSearch 2.17 release, which is the latest release, and the performance of the most complex queries is 6.5x faster than our first OpenSearch release, which is 1.3. So it's a significant shift we've done in terms of the query performance. And from an indexing perspective, last year we did this thing called segment replication, and we have about 25% throughput on indexing improvement compared to a default like document replication. And then the most interesting thing I want to say is, because we value a lot of multi-stakeholder and community contribution, we collaborated with Intel on Z standard, and compression is one of the most important thing for OpenSearch for performance and storage efficiency, and we've achieved about 30% performance improvement. And our roadmap, I just briefly talk about our roadmap. Our roadmap has, across indexing, search, and storage, and vector capabilities, we're doing a ton of work with performance and cost optimization in mind. So we're excited about that.
That's great. Yeah, it does seem like there's more concern about resource optimization with Gen AI workloads requiring so much resources.
Exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of Gen AI and its needs, how is that shaped OpenSearch? So
we've been together with this Gen AI momentum, and one of the things you see with this AI innovations is it's transforming search experience for all skill levels of all users, right? And as you look at the AI applications built these days, a lot of these AI applications need like efficient indexing. They need really fast way to query these large language models, and they need knowledge bases and so on. And OpenSearch is really in the heart of it. It provides all of these capabilities with providing these ML capabilities. We also allow you to build chatbots, AI assistants, generate content, and I talked about semantic and neural search, which is natural language to query search. And so we do all of that in OpenSearch. And then for builders who are more advanced, we enable them to do things like search re-ranking, or you can rewrite your queries, and you can build these RAG-based applications, which is retrieval augmented generation AI applications. And all of this is really requires a vector database. In most AI-based applications, they require a vector database, and OpenSearch is the vector database solution. And the last thing I'll say is OpenSearch is a popular vector solution today in this day and age, but in 2019, OpenSearch pioneered what is called the KNN, nearest neighbor search, in the search engine, and all our vectors today, our vector database is powered by these KNN indexes. So we're really in the heart of this whole era of Gen AI.
Right, and the cutting edge of that.
Yeah,
and
so I'm excited about that too.
Beginning of that. As we mentioned, OpenSearch was created as a fork and as a reaction to Elasticsearch going behind a more restrictive license. We've seen the rise of that. I mentioned this. A lot of that going around. We've seen OpenTofu, the creation of OpenTofu because of Terraform. We've seen Valky because of Redis in response to those formerly fully open source projects being going behind more restrictive licensing. So what do you think of this trend that we're seeing? Do you think is there going to be more of this? I mean,
So everything I've believed in, like in my 30-year career in this industry, and I'm working in open source, I do think trust is the heart of open source. Like, you have to build trust. Relicensing, maybe it is motivated by monetization or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It does erode trust.
Yes.
And also companies, a lot of companies, including AWS, they are looking at trade-offs. They're looking at legal, technical trade-offs. They're looking at, whether this is a risk they would like to take in a project which is with restrictive licensing and stuff. So I would say I hope that this trend doesn't continue. I hope that we continue to innovate in open source and we build a more open model for collaboration. That's what I would say. Yeah.
So OpenSearch is part of the Linux Foundation now. What do you feel are the things that it needs from the maintainers to have it grow in the way that it needs to meet the moment?
It's a great question. So, as part of transferring to the Linux Foundation, we have created a technical steering committee, which is comprised of contributors and maintainers of OpenSearch. In the technical steering committee, we have about 15 members there across representing many organizations, including ByteDance, RN, Oracle, Uber, Slack, and more, including AWS. What we really need from the contributors and the community is bringing in their ideas and innovation, and also raising awareness about OpenSearch. We talked about Gen AI. We talked about how search is reaching a different level of evolution, and we really want the companies also sponsoring their employees to contribute to OpenSearch. And the last thing I'll say is, we recently are working with Uber and Slack, and they have a Lucene engine-based system for their search. And what they've seen is the goodness of collaborating in OpenSearch, which is also a Lucene engine-based system, and bringing their ideas and their innovations into OpenSearch. And that's exactly what I want to see. That's the future I see for OpenSearch. More innovations.
Yeah. And that's an issue like in open source more generally. There are a lot of companies. It sounds like these companies are very involved in it.
Yes.
But there are definitely many companies that might be using OpenSearch and not contributing back. What would you say to companies? I mean, like, it just seems like a constant problem. Like that open source, like just about every organization in the world uses open source software, but small percentage contribute upstream.
Actually, this is something, like it's a really cultural change. And like I was part of the cultural change in AWS. I was earlier on in my other organizations I used to work with. And what people don't realize is it's a flywheel which gives back to you. So, when you innovate and you're bringing in your innovations with a diverse set of stakeholders, you're actually solving customer problems, which you would not have done it in your own little, controlled space or whatever organization, right? You look at any Linux foundation, like Linux, you look at Kubernetes, you look at PyTorch, you look at so many of these examples. I do think diverse innovation actually brings in more value, and actually it helps the company to grow its business based on the value we're getting from these innovations. So I am a big believer, and I hope we can bring more believers into this ecosystem.
How can someone get involved in the OpenSearch project?
So you can start with going to foundation.opensearch.org.
Okay.
You can go to opensearch.org as well. And, it's a simple way to first learn about it. You can reach us on public Slack channels, and you can, reach us in our GitHub repo, and we have all of the maintainers and the contributors actively engaged. Find any way to contribute, even doing, brand awareness is contribution.
Right.
Doing technical talks, documentation is contribution.
Yeah.
So I welcome any sort of contribution into OpenSearch.
Yeah. Documentation always seems to be the thing that is absolutely necessary, but it's sometimes hard to find people to do it.
Documentation is a key gap we have. So love those contributions. Yeah.
Are there other key things that you would really like to see more?
So documentation, we want to do training and certification, so we'd like some engagement. And then in general, I would like to figure out a way to raise awareness of OpenSearch and all of the Swiss Army knife we talked about and all the use cases. I would love for people, it's like everyone talks about it and then they figure out how they can come back and contribute and help us to bring the search to a more, to a larger ecosystem. It's just brand awareness. Yeah.
Okay. And we'll include with the article with this story. We'll include some links so people can do that.
Yeah, definitely.
One more question. We talked about some of the use cases. Is there a use case that you think is particularly cool or innovative, or that you could work but you haven't seen anybody try yet?
Wow, that's a good one. I get excited a lot about performance. We talked about it. I also get a lot of excitement around the vector innovations we're doing. And one of the recent work we're doing is around, how do we do cost, be more efficient in cost and storage. And so the thing which really excites me is some of the work we're doing in that area. We're doing work around dist-optimized storage in the vector space. And we would love to collaborate with more people to innovate in this area and really focus on vector performance and cost efficiency.
Yep.
So that's something I'm always excited about.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I just want to say thank you to Anade Bumstead from AWS. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I enjoyed this conversation.
I did as well. Thank you very much. And I also want to thank AWS for sponsoring today's conversation. And I want to thank all of you for joining us.
Thank you.
This has been Heather Joslin for the New Stack Makers on the road at All Things Open in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we'll see you next time.
If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on all the major social media platforms. You can always find us at thenewstack.io. We hope to see you soon.